To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked Presents, a happy place where each week we combine imagination with our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I'm Ron Berner. That is, of course, Mr. FreshBaked himself, the indelible David Erickson.
What's up, FreshBaked?
And this is the FreshBaked Presents podcast, episode 13. Lucky 13. Thank you for joining us, where today we explore Disneyland Forever. Actually, Disneyland Forward, but Disneyland Forever somehow feels fitting. We reach into the mailbag to answer your questions and, of course, our 5 things Disneyland. Happy November, David.
You too, Ron. Happy November. And
How
it is
are
going
you?
to take forever, by the way. It will be forever. It's going to take
Yeah,
forever.
It's so funny because that was an honest to God slip, but it's Disneyland Forever, Disneyland Forward Forever. Yeah, you're right. Matter of fact, Disney says on the Disneyland Forward.com website, they even call it Disneyland Forward, the multi-year public planning effort with the city of Anaheim.
What project isn't multi-year anymore?
Oh, exactly. It's funny because I was going to get into some of that because as a marketer, I have to put in 3-year plans constantly, especially when there's automation involved. And from right now to 3 years later, I promise you, my plan is drastically different.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can't pour concrete in less than 2 years, it seems like.
yeah, like I feel like the meat and potatoes of it becomes infrastructure. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of moving parts with this, and I'm gonna hand it over to you and let you. You did a video this week, and that educated me on more than I knew in terms of the recent developments. And I just want you to paint the picture, set us straight, catch us up, anything Disneyland Forward that you have that you want to get this conversation launched with.
All right. Well, quick primer. Disneyland Forward is an expansion project that Disney put out there in March. Out of nowhere, nobody said, nobody saw it coming or anything like that. An expansion project where they're going to take the Simba parking lot and the Disneyland Hotel and Downtown Disney parking lot, and then some space in between. What rests in between those is Downtown Disney and the Disneyland Hotel, and the Paradise Pier Hotel. They're going to take all that property and turn it into more theme park space. And then they just gave us this vague concept art, which they said, don't look behind the curtain too much on this concept art. It doesn't mean anything, literally. It means nothing, because people were looking at this like, oh my God, there's going to be a Black Panther attraction. No, there's not. It's not anything like that. It was just to sort of whet the appetite, as it were. Some concept art is real when it's about a real attraction that they know they're going to build. Galaxy's Edge, whatever. This is not that kind of concept art. Now, recently, 7 months later, or whatever, this last week, new information comes to light. A bunch of notices from the city of Anaheim were made public, and it gave us a little peek into what Disney's intentions were. When this news first broke, I would say the divide was split. Half the people thought, oh my gosh, we're getting Disney Park. What's it going to be? This looks like you could put this here and you could put this here. And the other half were saying, this is nothing more than Disney trying to get the city of Anaheim to change their mind, to change how they zone things, to change what the agreements are between Disneyland and the city. Disney is trying to lobby the city of Anaheim to give Disney a method, a way for Disney to do some of the things that they want to do that they can't do because of the zoning restrictions. These notices that came out last week are pretty much that. It's evidence that Disney's plans Disneyland Forward is more about changing the relationship between the city of Anaheim and Disneyland in terms of how they operate, as opposed to any specific theme park ride or anything like that. How's that for a starter?
That's a great starter, and that I'm actually very happy to hear you say that, because that's where I was with this. You know what I mean? My thought of this whole thing had to do with even from the get-go, essentially, especially when the zoning news came out, the zoning conversation came out with the Disney, with that hotel downtown Disney
Paradise
and
Pier
all that.
Hotel, yeah.
All these things really got the zoning conversation kind of front and center for those that weren't aware of it previously, me being one of them. I wasn't that well versed on really any of this. You need to be a city planner or something.
Yeah.
but the zoning element of it. So the Disneyland Forward concept art originally made me think that, and then reading more about zoning and understanding zoning better, that they just wanted essentially yes, they want to give an olive branch to Anaheim with new leadership there. Also, they kind of got a little bit of a better relationship going. So that olive branch, along with holding a placeholder, if you will,
Yes, in your imagination.
Yep, something to get on the roadmap, also while mending the relationship with the city of Anaheim and almost placating them and letting them know this is for us, this is for you as well.
Right.
And these are the wonderful things that we're going to bring in. That's not only for the Disneyland Resort, but for the city of Anaheim. So let's collectively do this, so to speak. So that primer is a little bit in line with kind of what I was thinking and what I had read months ago.
Yeah,
As for speculation.
I would say to ask the potential question, how does that work? How does announcing this accomplish the goals that we just talked about in terms of changing zoning? It in two ways. One, it gets the public talking, gets the public asking, it gets the public wanting, creating an appetite for, saying we want this thing to happen, and it pushes the city of Anaheim to, agree to whatever it is that Disney's trying to agree to. It also gets the cities, it fills in, like you said, a placeholder in their imaginations to say, okay, this is what we could have. This is better than what we have now, or it's more, or whatever. So it gives the city something to work with in terms of just, green lighting a zoning change. And what's interesting is that based on I had some conversations with some folks after the video that I put out. A few people volunteered some information, and this is, we can get into this further, but I think the one takeaway that I took from this, and maybe we can talk about it, is that it's probably not Disney's goal to build the entirety of Disneyland Forward. It is probably not their plan to build an extension of DCA and build an extension of Disneyland, and to build a Disney Springs thing and Toy Story parking lot, and to do whatever else that concept art and the Disneyland Forward website suggests. It's probably they're trying to do something less than that, but they shot the moon. They said, here's all this stuff. We want to do this big, fantastic thing. But what they really want is probably just that thing over there and that thing right there, and that's it. And we don't know what those things are yet. But because the city of Anaheim has to agree to all this. And they're not just going to write them a blank check and say, yeah, go for it, do it all. There's going to be compromise. There's going to be things that they can or can't do. So Disney's goal is maybe to do a portion of whatever it is that they are suggesting in the concept art and the Disneyland Forward website. What do you think their goal is?
I think you bring up a lot of interesting points. Yes, I think their goal is to what you said. They're going to ask for, in negotiations, you always ask for more and hope to get something lesser. That's the negotiation, is you're not going to get what you're asking for, but you're going to get something. So to your point, ask for the moon. This is like pro sports contract. Ask for the moon and you're going to get something there. It's interesting that you asked me, what do I think they want? Because there's going to be regime, like Bob Chapek's not going to be here in 30 years. So how do they do a 30-year plan? By the way, there may be multiple CEOs, and that's the question. Like this 30-year plan. And by the way, we didn't mention that at the top. The Disneyland Forever. They said a 30-year plan is what they touted it.
Done in faith.
And what I think, I don't know. Outside of, I think they want to acquire assets. To your point, ask for the moon and get something small. The obvious piece, the obvious nugget, the obvious missing link that they need control of is Garden Grove. So, like,
you mean Garden Walk, or do you mean?
Or Garden Walk. Did I say Garden Grove? I always do that. Garden Walk, that's the piece that would make the most sense if you had to say that they want a piece. I don't know that has anything to do with it because it's on the other side, but Still, it's part of the big ask that they're looking for. So I don't know exactly what they want to do other than see what they have to work with and go from there.
Yeah.
Because a couple other things came out and you pointed it out in your video, Disneyland Drive, which we'll
Mhm.
definitely get into that. But the other thing is, I'm not sold. I, I'm not sold on them doing the outdoor mall, so to speak, the Disney
Oh, the
Springs thing.
Toy Story lot.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it because retail is everywhere. Or I know restaurants, I know other things of that nature, and they're cool in theory, but also it doesn't seem like it seems unambitious to me.
Well, it's
Just
funny because for what ever, forever, since I've been covering Disneyland, the only thing that anybody ever wants to talk about when it comes to Toy Story lot is making it a third gate. Like
right,
nobody had Disney Springs on their Toy Story lot parking, on their bingo card for Toy Story lot parking lot.
right.
It's so when you're exactly right. It's like, oh, Disney Springs, really? Like I want park. I want theme park.
Yeah, I mean, we're Southern California. Like I live, maybe this is because I live in Hollywood for so long, but like the Grove, and people, this is probably why I say Garden Grove. The Grove is an outdoor mall. Southern California is loaded with outdoor
Yeah,
malls, and they're fun. They're people watching, and Disneyland is just a better version of people watching. So I would go to the Grove, these outdoor malls. Lots of dining out on
yeah.
balconies and decks, adult beverages, entertainment. Very, very fun vibe, and all it is an outdoor mall with maybe a farmer's market, just whatever. It's just fun. Disneyland is a much grander version of that. So I guess the reason I say having a Disney Springs or something of that sort at the Toy Story parking lot, I feel like there's outdoor malls all over the place. I'm not sure that that's the best bang for their buck. Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Just
I
down the
just
street is another outdoor mall, the Block at Orange.
right. And the Disney downtown Disney is also around the corner.
Downtown Disney, yeah.
So, so I don't know. So that's why in my mind, when you ask me, what do I think their plan is? I don't know that they actually know what their plan is per se, but I think it's about acquiring assets because we talked about this a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, if not last week. If they had the opportunity to buy Garden Walk or any of this land around there, somebody had assets in mailbag, and I think we both were pretty adamant about saying if they could buy anything, they would because they
They
just
would
want to
have already
acquire the
bought Garden Walk.
exactly.
There are components to the Garden Walk conversation that have to be refreshed from time to time, but there's been many opportunities for them to buy Garden Walk and they didn't, and it's because they can't do what people want them to do with that property due to contractual reasons, I believe. I'm not
It's
an
got to be
expert on it.
leasing.
Yeah, well, right. I've heard anecdotally through comments and conversations that there's an agreement if you buy the Garden Walk property, you have to use it as it's constituted for like the next 30 years. But it has to be a hotel space and retail space. It can't be theme park space. That's the zoning situation.
Right.
But I think that's written into the contract, not necessarily an agreement with the city. That's more about the purchase contract for the ownership of the property. It's a rider on that conversation, a rider on that contract, not with the city. If Garden Walk was going to be Disney property, it would be already. That's basically the way I would put it, considering how many times it's been up for sale. They couldn't give it away. They tried to sell the Garden Walk for purchase price like 5 or 10 years ago, and they couldn't. Nobody wanted it,
Right.
which is why it still is what it is today, even though nobody goes there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for it. It's hard to wrap your head around why Disney wouldn't buy it, unless they feel like they're competing against themselves because nobody else wants it. But that being said, why anybody else wouldn't also want it, knowing eventually Disney will buy it. So it's almost like
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it's at least a place to park your money for 30 years until Disney
right.
can buy it, right?
But if we're talking the long game, I mean, Disney just announced it, not just, but in March, as you stated, Disneyland Forward was announced in March, and they're telling us now that it's a 30-year plan. So Disney has no plans of going anywhere
There are
for
no plans. No.
centuries away. So it seems reasonable to buy something, even though you can't use it for how you want to use it for
Yeah.
30 years, just in case. It feels to me It's like, why wouldn't they just acquire everything they can? There's a lot of moving parts to it. I understand that, but
Well, they because they don't want to be in that business. I guess is the only thing that I can think of. It's not the business they want to be in. Whatever it is that business has to be at Garden Walk, they don't want to be in that business. That's just
yeah,
my long-term view. I don't know.
yeah, you know what? They're still Disney, and they still operate organizationally on a budget. There are budget
Yeah.
for certain things in every single department throughout the entire organization. So that's how that
But
works, I guess.
having said that, there are properties that they do own that are literal dirt. So, on Harbor Boulevard, the carousel, they turned that little sliver of the carousel hotel into a parking lot. There's another property they own that's still dirt. So I don't know why they wouldn't want to be. I mean, I guess they have to manage it. They don't have to manage those properties, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I take your word for it 100%, but it's so hard for me to grasp that if they had the opportunity to buy Garden
Yeah,
Walk and just said, no, it's just, it's hard. You know what I mean? It just seems like it's so, because of its location, whether
yeah.
they can use it for
It's
30
yeah.
years or not. It's just like, huh?
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't
Yeah.
know.
You would
So
think they would want to.
So I was just going to say a couple things that we touched on that I don't want to glaze over. And by all means, chime in with any key elements you want to bring up. But do you
Sure.
want to talk about Disneyland Drive?
Yeah, Disneyland Drive. I got that wrong a little bit in the video. My imagination told me that they were going to privatize that road in order to convert it to make it a seamless piece of land. They're not going to do that. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of privatizing it's still going to be a street. It still has to be a street
Yeah, right. Grand
because of
California
public safety, that kind of thing,
and the
fire,
Grand Californian, you can't get to
Grand
it.
California, right? But they're going to close it off. It's not going to be the public can't have access to it, but it'll still be a street. They'll still have to cross the street in order to get to Disneyland Forward, in order to get to whatever expansions. Um, the hotel, I talked about that in the video, why it was zoned the way it was. I've learned since then that Disney, when this agreement, the current agreement with the city of Anaheim was constructed, the 1993 Disneyland Resort Specific Plan, Disney didn't own that hotel at the time.
Right.
It was I forget the name of it, but it was some other hotel, so they didn't. It wasn't. It was still zoned for that purpose. Since then, they're trying to change the way that property is owned or not owned, managed in the current plan. It'll probably still be a hotel, which is great because that would be a fantastic hotel if it does wind up being the case and they build Disneyland Forward around it. That would be a super awesome place to stay, in my opinion. Probably the best place to stay. One thing that
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I was thinking about doing a separate video on this, but I mean, now's as good a time as any to talk about it, is the scope of the plan in terms of what is theme park and what isn't. And this is kind of what I was alluding to when I asked what their ultimate goal might be. I don't think it's possible physically to build all of that space as theme park space. A key issue, a key problem with the whole Disneyland Forward project and the way that the concept art is constructed is Walnut Avenue. If you're familiar with the resort, you know that
Yep.
Walnut Avenue is the street that Disneyland, I don't know what the term is. It borders Walnut. The Pixar Pier, or the
Yep.
Pixar Palace parking lot, the Mickey and Friends parking lot, the Simba parking lot, the back of the Disneyland Hotel, all run up against Walnut Avenue.
Right.
That is on the other side of Walnut is a residential tract.
Yep.
It's apartments, it's homes. It's not commercial, it's not retail. So there's no chance, zero chance that the city of Anaheim would approve of Disney putting in theme park space that literally borders Walnut Avenue without some kind of buffer, i.e., what we have already, a parking structure, a giant concrete wall that protects, it's a sound barrier.
Yeah.
So if they were going to build something on the Simba lot, for example, which is bare right now, it's you can see the Simba lot from Walnut Avenue. They would have to put probably another giant concrete structure, most likely more parking.
Yep.
Another parking structure, kind of like the Pixar Palace or something like that. that reduces the amount of available space that you have to build proper theme park. And so you can't build these enormous extensions of the property. Now you're looking at maybe a land. What's left on the Simba lot? You're looking at maybe a land. Likewise, over on the Disneyland side, they're proposing to put park at the Disneyland Hotel parking space, which is why I'm suggesting, by the way, that they're going to build a new parking lot on the Simba side, because they're going to lose all that parking space for the Disneyland Hotel on the other side, right? So you have to put those cars somewhere, and the downtown Disney parking. So if you're going to turn that into theme park, you need to build infrastructure. You need to build. There's nothing on that side of the lot. There's no backstage.
Right.
Exactly. There's no backstage anywhere. Where do you put? You have to have. In some cases, you don't have to have backstage. Galaxy's Edge, you were able to build backstage because you didn't need all of the backstage, but you still had some backstage. Same thing with Toontown. There is no backstage. There's no pre-existing backstage to take over, so they have to build it. So you take a lot like this, and now it's a lot like this, in order to put in all that infrastructure and backstage stuff. I don't think Disney's goal is to build an expansion for both parks. I think we're going to wind up seeing just DCA.
That's a really good point. I did in my notes for under why 30 years, I have about 50 comments that I made to myself, and one of them was Homeowners Association, and I'm not using it. I'm not using it like correctly, but the idea that I was trying to get out was whether it's businesses, homeowners, the city of Anaheim. So the city of Anaheim has to play nice, not play nice, but they are a city. They have businesses and they have residential areas. So they also have a theme park, but that whole element of issues, because I'm not smart enough to know anything. There's legal teams on these type of things when you start looking at documents and how this negotiation goes back and forth. So I don't know the details of it, but I had to figure that, to your point, so Walnut runs parallel to Disneyland Drive, the entire length of both parks. So those are all residential over there. And that becomes, to your point, a potential really loud, troublesome, high traffic now in front, maybe like just all kinds of issues that
there would be so many more cars traveling. God, can you imagine what the traffic on
Walnut doesn't
would be like?
Well, exactly, because if Disneyland Drive is no longer accessible to the public, then they're going to go one block over, which is Walnut.
Yeah.
I
mean, seriously, whenever I go to that area, I'm using both of those streets. I'm using Walnut and Disneyland Drive often when I'm trying to navigate the parking lot, when I'm trying to navigate Simba or navigate Mickey and Friends. If something were to go wrong, I find myself on Walnut constantly, and that's just a small fraction of what it would wind up being.
Oh man. I mean, your only other option is Harbor, and that's a long way away. Like that could be a problem. So that's a very interesting. I never did think that they were going to get rid of Disneyland Drive, and like when I had heard the whispers on it, I know Twitter has been going crazy. But I just didn't think that because of the Grand Californian is centrally located. Like, what plan B could they possibly have if they got rid of Disneyland Drive, right? There's just there's no way to get to it unless you use Magic Way, and that becomes still a singular entry.
Well, Magic
exit,
Way
which
would
is
still
bad.
also be an existing street. That would stay. It's everything.
Right.
South of Magic Way. I don't know. My directions are
right. I'm staring at a map, so it's down on the map. So that's south.
Down. There you
go. So that's funny. So I let me look at my notes and here a couple, not even notes, but just things that came to mind when we start talking about a 30-year plan. So maybe I think a question or conversation is why a 30-year plan? Like I said already, the Bob Chapek right now, imagine if they had a plan. You asked me what I think they're going to do. I don't think they have a clue what they're going to do, because Bob Chapek just got there. I know he would have been a part of the conversations or heard the whispers for previous many years. But the point is, he's there, and he's not going to he's certainly not going to be there in 30 years. He's probably not going to be there in maybe 10, 15. So there could be 2, 3, maybe more. You never know with health. You just never know with situations how this could unfold. But whatever his plan is and whatever those are, when somebody else comes in, like why are they going to make the same exact decisions that their predecessor made? Those sorts of factors. That I
Well,
mean, that tells you.
yeah, assuming that there's some flexibility built into the plan, which what could answer the question, why is it 30 years? Because it gives them time to change their mind. It gives them time to redirect their focus. You might build just the new DCA land in the Symbol lot in the first 5 or 10 years, and then kind of see how that goes, and then maybe then you try to figure out what you're going to do on the other side with Disneyland. But I don't think the fact that it's a 30-year plan suggests to me that they're not trying to build it all at once. You know what I mean?
100%.
Obviously, because they said phases, but
Well, 100%.
specifically that side of it, the theme park side.
Yeah, I think the 30-year plan is all. We always talk about kicking the can down the road or buying time, but and
Yeah.
this is actually a useful way to do it. For one thing, they're level setting, which I think is always good, and it feels like they're taking their time. A couple of things come to mind. That will be Disneyland's 95th birthday, so a big picture. So
Oh, in 30 years. Yeah.
30, yeah, 95th. So I guarantee they're gonna have something big planned for 100 years out. So this is all infrastructure stuff. It doesn't have anything to do with it, but of course it does because there are no coincidences. So what they don't know what the end result will be, but I'm sure that on the radar, at some point they're gonna have plans in place for big picture stuff, and
Yeah.
everything becomes milestones. So the infrastructure alone to acquire assets, acquire land, however they're going to get this, and whatever deal they strike with the city of Anaheim, then they can move forward on that. But it's all milestone stuff. So to your point, it's like, okay, what's the infrastructure stuff? What leasing things do we need to deal with? Zoning things, so that allocation of funds. The leases have to be, if
Yep.
they're taking over new land. City ordinances, red tape, third parties like the state of California. Not that that would have anything to do with it, but I'm just saying there's so much to it that I'm sure they're tackling this in milestones, and then they to get to the creative part of this is like a decade away at least.
It's such a magical conversation this is turning out to be.
Oh, I didn't
You know
mean.
what I mean? Like all we want is theme park. We want to be wowed and wondered,
Yeah,
and but now for 10 years we're talking about contracts and city ordinance, and oh my God,
yeah. Well,
this is the cost of doing a Disneyland news channel, I guess.
yeah, well, not only that, but how we often say how we're going to be following up on this. We're not going to follow up on this because nothing's going to happen forever. Like, there's no
Yeah.
conversation. Nothing new could really come. Think about this. This is what I thought about anyway. So the Disneyland Hotel, back to the zoning thing on downtown Disney. They closed down half of downtown Disney, at least that portion of downtown Disney, like the AMC Theater. Not that that wasn't
Yeah.
going to die anyway, but
Yeah.
they closed down Earl Sandwich. All these things were going to get
Yeah.
demolished. They had all these plans in place, and it was a matter of, I think, feet, a couple hundred feet maybe of zoning issues at the 11th hour essentially, and they're like, okay, forget it, scratch all that, we're not doing it. Like, that's
That's right.
insane.
You just reminded me because I think one of the issues they were having, right, was that because they wanted to build it on a site that was zoned for parking and not hotel. The
Right.
right the Disneyland Hotel and the downtown Disney parking lots weren't. They wanted to build there, but those were zoned for parking only. And Disney just, it's funny. It's the hubris of a person who's planning all this and designing. Hey, we could do all this stuff, not even considering the fact that you can't.
Right.
You, there's like, no, forget it. We're just gonna do it anyway. Oh, you mean we can't do it? Oh, well, screw you guys then. Like they just assumed that they were gonna be allowed to do whatever it is that they wanted to do.
That was one of the more mind-boggling things to me. I was beside myself when they canceled that. After all the
Yeah,
steps that they had made for them.
yeah,
Oh, and it was literally only a couple hundred feet,
right.
which is a lot in some regard, but also for the magnitude of fiscal dollars put into this, and they couldn't come to that agreement. And it's like
Which,
your neighbor's fence is in your yard, like tear
yeah,
it down.
which makes me think even more strongly that whatever it is that you think that they're proposing on that concept art can't happen because of Walnut Avenue.
Yep.
If you think the 100 feet or whatever it was for the parking zoning was an issue, sound and light, on residential homes, They're not going. The city of Anaheim's not going to agree to that.
Right. And you can't fix the problem like you did with Pixar Pal Around by just digging it deeper into the ground so it was below the flight line,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
you can't solve that. Literally across a residential street is an entire city of residential, and there's sound ordinances. I don't know what they are, but clearly that's not something that's going to happen. That's a good point by you. I hadn't thought about it until you brought it up, but yeah, that's definitely a big deal.
yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you want to? I mean, we could go on forever about this, about speculating. Any big moments you want, or not moments, but
Um,
information?
yeah, I think that the second part of what Disney's going for here could just be the Eastern Gateway. I think that that is one of the key items of this negotiation is going to wind up being. I think they really want to build the Eastern Gateway, and because it was kind of like it was an afterthought in the documents, the notices that were published last week. It was just this little, okay, by the way, we're going to do that little thing right there. That was a huge thing back, a couple years ago, and it's something that they are very interested in doing. Um, and I think that
Yeah.
part of all of this, including getting public favor and all this, and getting this conversation going, and trying to lobby this and that, is to get the Eastern Gateway done. I think that's part two of their bigger plan, or I should say their end game. That's their end game, is to get maybe a land for DCA at Simba and the Eastern Gateway on the other side of Harbor.
I mean, I definitely think that at some point, inevitably, there will be a third gate and another gateway. I don't know. I mean, it goes
Well,
back to
that's a
the
whole
buying.
other conversation. That's the way that the Disneyland Forward is set up. It certainly doesn't act like an extension of the existing park, and it certainly does act like it's a third gate. But I don't. We're probably already short on time, so that's a whole another conversation. Third gate, right there, man.
It is. It is. I feel like it goes back to just acquire as much assets as you can and
Yep.
then reassess. And the long game, they're always going to win. They're generations deep already, and they're not going anywhere.
Yep.
Okay, that was colorful. That was interesting. There's a lot to that, man. There's a lot of really, really smart people and teams of people that are like trying to work through that and sort that out, and they don't know probably a whole lot more than we do, except for the obstacles in their way on both sides to solve that.
Yeah.
This week in Disney history, David, things
Yes.
open, things closed as per the usual. This week, David, Pete's Dragon premieres in select theaters in 1977. In 1973, Robin Hood opened. The Incredibles in 2004 this week, and in 2006, the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause opened. The most notable one, before I ask you a question about those other 5 films, or those other 4, was on November 5th, 1937, Silly Symphony's The Old Mill was released. This, of course, is notable because it was the first film to use the multi-plane camera. Besides the
Really?
award for Best Cartoon, which it won, Walt received a second Academy Award, a scientific and technical Class II plaque for the design and application of the multi-plane camera. The camera, David, get this, 1937 cost $70,000 to build, and that
Jeez.
thing stood 14 feet tall.
Yes.
The
I've seen
multi-plane
it.
camera, I have too. It's a box.
Yeah.
The multi-plane camera added depth to animated films by producing more realistic movement of foreground, middle, and background elements. Um, the camera panned from left to right and zoomed in and out. The technological breakthrough was so successful it garnered a special scientific and technical category Academy Award, and of course that's what they gave to Walt, and that's what started it.
Yeah.
So, of the 5 films that I mentioned, just for fun, which one have you seen the most, and which one have you seen the least? And
Wait, what are
that's
they again?
Pete's Dragon, Robin Hood, The Incredibles, The Santa Claus 3,
And then the Old Mill.
oh, The Old Mill, which is a short, but
Yeah. Incredibles, obvious, would be number one. Santa Claus 3. I'm sorry, but that's probably number 2. I've seen Robin Hood a number of times. That was treasured memory from my childhood. Robin Hood. I've only seen Pete's Dragon twice,
That's funny because
and then I don't think I've ever seen the Old Mill.
oh really? I've seen the old mill.
Yeah.
It's good. It's fun. I like silly symphonies. They're fun. Every time I watch
Mhm.
them, I don't really take the time to go do it, but every time I do, especially having a child, when I was getting him all into it, I used the time to be a parent. I call it Disney Daddy Boot Camp. I was really educating myself on the things, but it was a
Sure.
cartoon, so he could enjoy it. I also seen Pete's Dragon. Oh, I think that I remember only twice. Robin Hood a couple more times than that. The Santa Claus 3 I've seen many, many times because I do the
Right?
Christmas thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do
every
the
year. We watch it every
yeah,
year.
exactly, exactly. The Incredibles, I've actually only seen that a handful of times, but it is really, really good.
Define a
Um,
handful, because a handful for me is like a dozen, I think.
oh no, for handfuls 5 or less because hand.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Um, okay, David, 1994 on November 9th, Mickey and Minnie took the Skyway's final trip
Oh,
as Disneyland closes the Skyway. Angels and rainbows wept.
they
At
must
the
have. Yes.
They must have. At the time, a Disney spokesperson claimed in the OC Register that the closure was due to declining popularity and that the attraction staffing would need to work the then upcoming Indiana Jones
Yep.
adventure that would open in 95. Though there were always lines waiting to ride the Skyway. So outside speculation suggested the closure was due to stress cracks in the Matterhorn supports, the main support, and a desire to keep operating costs low. Walt had heard in 1955 about Von Roll Ironworks testing a Skyway system. First time he'd ever heard of it. He bought one before he even knew what to do with it and where it would go. And he put Imagineer legend John Hench on the job, citing it's a transportation system of the future for use in parking lots in huge shopping centers. Walt himself personally opened the Skyway on a January 23rd, 1956 ceremony. There were 42 gondolas on the cable passing through the Matterhorn on the way to Tomorrowland. It was the first ride of its kind to be built in the United States. Two and later four passenger buckets, thanks to Bob Gurr, were suspended from a 2,400-foot long cable traveling between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. And I think it's poetically beautiful. I didn't know this actually, even though this is my attraction of choice. That bookend the maiden voyage of the Sky End, which Walt was on, and the final trip carried a Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse and his beloved Minnie. I
Yep.
love that. That's how that thing opened and closed. Will Disneyland, David, ever see a Skyway system again?
It's funny you say that or ask that, because a week ago I would have said no. Uh, Eastern Gateway. That is a possible solution to getting people from the Eastern Gateway parking lot into Disney property. Is a
It is
Skyway.
funny. That is funny because the part B, after you answer that question, I was going to say, because that's what Walt originally thought of it was. I was like,
Yeah.
imagine that instead of a tram, or not instead of, but in addition to a tram. How cool would that be?
It
That would
circumvents
be
that whole conversation of the businesses that are on harbor and their objection. Disney could just say, "Okay, well, we own this piece of property right here. We're going to build a freaking Skyway. We're going to go right over you."
Yep. Yep. I will say also, I've mentioned this before, but there's an Instagram site account. He's changed his name, but now it's called Walt's Disneyland. And it is vintage Disneyland photos. And the reason I bring this up is because every time he posts something from vintage Disneyland about the Skyway, and the views,
Yeah,
those old pictures are unbelievably gorgeous. And I always
they really are.
say, imagine that same exact picture as perfect as it is, and then in your mind's eye, remove the Skyway. I mean, just that visual that the Skyway brought from any up to it, down from it, every angle
Yep.
is remarkable. So I believe that there will be a Skyway again because it's just too perfect not to. It's like, especially when they upgrade it. or updated, I should say, to the way Walt Disney World's is, where it's very
Yeah,
safe. I mean, it can
it's
be done
proven
now,
very successful and popular too.
right? And the Matterhorn also, at some point, will need to go under a major overhaul, to build
Oh,
it
you're
back.
trying to go through the Matterhorn again.
Well, I'm just saying, if that's the obstacle, then that also will need eventually to get some TLC, and it
Yeah.
works together. And by the way, Disneyland Forward or Tomorrowland, it's like a turtle race.
That's
What's
true.
what's gonna happen first?
The 30-year
Um,
plan for Tomorrowland. It's a bit. Well, we're already halfway into our 30-year plan for
I
Tomorrowland. It feels like.
know, I know. That's what's funny, right? Okay, moving on.
Okay.
1978, David. Mickey Mouse is given a star on Hollywood Boulevard's Walk of Fame and became the first cartoon character to be so honored. While Mickey was the first to join the Walk of Fame, he was not the last of the Disney family to have a star on the walk. 9 of the 18 total fictional characters are from Disney. Would you care to venture any guesses? Or
Oh,
you can even
which
guess, yeah, of who may or may not be on the Walk of Fame. You can also take a chime at non-Disney super character that made it. Because number two that made it was in 1985, was not a Disney character.
I mean, I could probably get half, but no, I'd probably fail miserably before I got to anything close to the finish line. I think, um, but I would imagine the Fab Five, right? Fab Six, really, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, interestingly, only Minnie and Donald. And Minnie just got hers in 2018.
Get out
Can
of
you
here.
I swear, Donald got his in
What?
2004. So what? They're tough sledding.
My God,
I
what are we
know.
waiting for?
I know. Let me give you the rundown because everybody's going to want to know. Bugs Bunny, number two,
Okay,
1985. Snow
well,
White,
yeah,
87. Woody Woodpecker, 1990. Big Bird, of course, 94. The Simpsons, they deserve it for their
yeah.
what they've done. 2000. Rugrats, 2001. Kermit,
What?
2002. Donald, '04. Godzilla, 2004. Winnie the Pooh, 2006. The Munchkins from The Wizard of Oz, '07. Shrek, 2010. Tinkerbell, 2000. Muppets, 2012. Snoopy, 2015. And Minnie, of course, in 18. And Alvin and the Chipmunks recently in 2019.
Wow.
Any
Hearing that
notable?
list makes me. I don't understand how that works. Then I honestly don't
You
understand
know,
our.
I can tell you from the celebrity side of things, they pay for it. It's like five
Right. Well,
grand.
that's what I figured. Somebody's got to.
It's
Somebody's got
five
to
grand.
like
So
just
yeah,
say
when you
they just
yeah when you
decide or they ask or
yeah
what.
I don't know what the approval process needs to be, but for all intents and purposes, it's like 5 grand. And I live like a couple blocks from these things, and so it's just blah blah blah.
So
It's
random.
I know, but it's funny when it's great when it's Mickey Mouse, but when it's some half of them I've never even heard of because
The
anybody with
Rugrats?
$5,000. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. 1967. The name of the Circarama Theater is Circle Vision. The
Hmm.
round or circular Circarama Theater played a 360-degree motion picture and debuted with Disneyland in 1955 with the film A Tour of the West. It featured 11 16-millimeter projectors and ran for 12 minutes. The process originally required 11 cameras, but in 67, the theater was upgraded and the bigger, better theater would become Circle Vision, which needed only 9 35-millimeter cameras. The new theater opened with an upgraded version of Circarama's most famous show, America the Beautiful. This patriotic film took
Yeah.
audiences on a journey across different American landscapes. America the Beautiful was an incredible success and it quickly became one of Tomorrowland's most popular attractions until it closed in 97. That it was part of the Buzz Lightyear
Yeah.
building, and both the 11 camera and 9 camera projection systems were designed by longtime Disney legend Iwerks. Did you ever see America the Beautiful in Circle
I'm
Vision?
I'm sure that I did, but I don't have any specific memory of it. But I feel like that's the kind of thing that I would have done, and and although like I said I don't have a memory of it, I kind of I guess I do a little bit. I think I did.
Right, right, right.
I think I did.
It's funny you say that because I definitely remember doing it, and I distinctly just remember going in there and standing in the room. But all my
Yeah.
memory of the whole thing is like a Jeep driving through like the outback. So so it was cool to like look
Yeah.
around and see the whole thing, and but that's really all I remember. I remember walking in and seeing this whole big popular thing, but I don't remember the movie, the story. I don't remember much else.
Yeah.
1993. This is fun. The Wall Street Journal reports that Disney is planning a theme park in Virginia. 2 days later, the Washington Post publishes two large reports about a proposed but not yet announced Disney park. The next day, Disney themselves would announce plans to build a 150-acre amusement park called Disney's America. The history themed park was to be built near Haymarket, Virginia. The 3,000 acre $650 million development would also include a campground, golf course, 2,500 homes, and 2 million square feet of office and commercial space. Guests would be able to experience distinct periods in American history. The park would bring history to life, examining the conflicts and successes that have marked the nation's passage from a colony to a world power. While state officials and locals were generally in favor of the project, there was intense opposition from a group of historians and environmentalists who complained about it being too near the Manassas Civil War battlefield. On September 28th, 1994, Disney announced that a different site would be sought instead. But no further work has ever been done on the project. But not all, and I did not know this. Several concepts originally intended for Disney's America were slightly
Yeah.
rethemed and reworked as elements of DCA,
That's right.
including Soaring California, Grizzly River Run, California Screamin', the Bountiful Valley Farm, and Condor Flats. My question to you is what the heck is Bountiful Valley Farm and Condor Flats? Because I
Well,
don't know.
Condor Flats was actually a land. That's what Grizzly River or Grizzly Run or Grizzly Peak is today. Basically, Condor Flats is just the land that is Grizzly Peak. Bountiful Valley Farms is the entrance to Avengers Campus, or was the entrance to a Bugs Land for a while. It was just this little section where they had corn, and it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big thing. It was a small sort of part of a larger thing. Wasn't even a land, but there's images you can find on the internet for that. But it wasn't much. It was just basically a little farm space that you could buy snacks and
Right.
kind of pretend like you're in a farm. There was part of when it was a Bugs Land that some of that remained, like that fenced area with the tall grass and all that. That was kind of a Bountiful Farms sort of setting.
Yeah,
Um,
I did
so
see
there
some
wasn't much.
pictures of it. I just don't
Yeah.
remember. That was what was funny is I'm like, huh. I
No, I don't
looked it
remember
up.
it either. Condor
I thought it
Flats,
was an
obviously. Yeah.
I thought it was an error, so I kind of looked it up and I'm like, oh, I guess so. But
Yeah.
2001, I was in DCA and I didn't go there again for like a decade because I was mortified at what I saw. Part of this week of Disney history, it is a celebration and sometimes comes remembering someone we've lost. On November 4th, 1991, we lost Disney legend Roger Broggie, who
Oh,
passed away at age 73. This man's accomplishments are staggering, and I want to share them. He was a mechanical engineer that created and brought to fruition the Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad,
yeah.
Mark Twain, Matterhorn, monorail, Lincoln, among many other things. He
Yeah.
began his Disney career in 39 in the camera department and later established the Disney Studio Machine Shop. Being interested in trains, he helped Walt with his train hobby and engineered the layout for the scale model train in Disney's backyard. As Walt's original Imagineer, he built everything from steam locomotives to electronic robots that could sing and dance. Gifted with mechanical genius, there wasn't anything he couldn't do or figure out. He epitomized the essence of Disney Imagineering, the blending of creative imagination and technical know-how. When he was honored at the Disney Legends Award in October of 1990, which we did cover on This Week in Disney History, Michael Eisner said, "Without Roger Broggie, Disneyland would not have happened." He joined the studio as a precision machinist in 1939. Among his first assignments was installing the complicated multi-plane animation camera equipment
Yeah.
at Disney's new Burbank lot. He later worked closely with fellow Disney legend Ob Iwerks to develop screen special effects cameras, cranes, and high-speed optical printers. In 49, Broggie helped Walt build his own miniature trains in the studio machine shop and went on to install into Walt's backyard. Later, of course, he was instrumental in developing the Disneyland and Santa Fe, as it was known at the time, Railroad. Broggie was promoted to head of the studio machine shop in 1950. Under his masterful direction, the shop's responsibilities expanded in 4 years, from creating special effects for films such as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to producing Disneyland attractions. These included the monorail Matterhorn, as I mentioned, and new film processes and techniques like, of course, Circle Vision. In 1951, Walt assigned Roger to work on Project Little Man, along with fellow Imagineer Wathel Rogers. Broggie constructed a 9-inch tall figure of a man that moved and talked, which became the prototype of audio animatronics technology. In 1963, Roger and his department completed Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, the first application of audio animatronics technology to a life-size human figure. In 1973, Roger turned his attention to planning for Epcot Center until, after dedicating more than 35 years to the company, he retired in 1975. The Walt Disney World Railroad steam engine number 3 is named the Roger E. Broggie in his honor. Roger Broggie passed away on November 4th, a bona fide Disney legend. What a career! My
no kidding.
goodness. Could you imagine your name attached to that? What it makes me think of, there's so many amazing Imagineers. Whose resume, just off the top of our head, because I didn't do any research, stacks up to that?
Bob Gurr.
Bob Gurr and
then
Bob
John
Gurr and
Hench,
Tony Baxter.
Tony Baxter, yeah. I mean, but it's funny because people don't talk about Broggie the way they talk about those others that we just mentioned.
Right. 100%. I didn't know all the things that I just read. I knew the name. I knew of him. I talked about him in the Disney Legends and This Week at Disney History a month ago. I didn't know to that degree because that was jaw dropping. This week in mailbag. See,
all right.
See how I recovered?
I see that. Yeah, that was masterful.
I fixed it. Mailbag. Edgar Ramos asks us, what's your favorite Jungle Cruise skipper jokes you have heard?
I'd like to point out to you some of my favorite trees here in the jungle. That's my favorite joke.
That's a good one. I like the joke when they break the fourth wall, actually. Like, they're all punny. They're all great. My favorite joke, I think, is, well, folks, I hope you enjoyed our trip around the jungle. I had such a fantastic time that I'm going to do it again. And again.
And again.
And again. And every 15 minutes for the next 8 hours. The other one I liked is kind of a, the character within the character that they do is, if you enjoyed yourself on this fine jungle cruise, my name is Ronnie, and this has been the world famous Jungle Cruise. If you didn't, then my name is David, and this has been the Haunted Mansion.
That's a good bit.
Yeah, they're all great. And one thing I would say about the Jungle Cruise skipper jokes is you hear great ones. It's really about the captain, the skipper. When the delivery, some are dry, some it's just all jokes in general are just about the delivery. And when they really are into it, some of them can turn a dry bad joke into a really hilarious one by the way they do it, and vice versa.
Sometimes dry works for me. I really like.
I like dry.
A guy that I always, they used to have the old bit with when they faced the natives and they would do, they would mimic the sounds of, them throwing the spears, right?
Yeah.
And most skippers would go spear, 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 spear.
All right.
I had a skipper. He would go spear, spear, spear. I don't know why that floored me when he did.
No, that is funny. That is a good one. I love their jokes. There's the other one that they do. We gotta move on. The other one is the hippos when they wiggle their ears. That means they're gonna charge or they're gonna attack the boat. But don't worry, I know how to I know how to scare them away. I love you. I want to marry you. I want to spend the rest. Let's be together forever. That's funny. Good stuff. Good stuff. Farshid, hello, Wookie. I said that wrong, and I apologize.
Maybe.
What is your favorite parade, and where do you like to view that parade, or where do you like to be for that parade?
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest things that Disney's ever created is Paint the Night. And not just, I mean, any kind of show. Paint the Night is the best parade ever. And I think every parade is better on Main Street, no matter which parade it is. Everything's better on Main Street. But that's kind of low-hanging fruit, right? So I would say my second favorite is that raised area back in our the Small World Mall. Right as it comes out of the gate, I really like that spot. And then I would say a good tip for a place to catch it is that empty area in front of the Matterhorn that's across from the teacups,
Right.
where that's where you cross paths because it looks like you can't sit there, and then till the very end they rope it off, and then and then all of a sudden, I've sat there many times where people are like, "What?" It looked like I was just squatting.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like you can sit there, but you get there. Yeah, it's one of the last places to fill up.
No, that's a good tip. It's very funny that the things you said, I guess maybe this just means we go to the parks an awful lot. But for those that don't, the good pro tip that he just gave you, by the Matterhorn, that's an excellent one. I actually was going to say the pro tip is also backed by, it's a small world because it doesn't get
Yeah.
quite the crowd that Main Street does. And I agree that to me, a parade is down Main Street. So I feel like the ideal experience is on Main Street, especially when you get it coming down and the castle in the background. I think
Yeah.
it's great. And it's a small world back in that area. Even I would even say across from it. So when it's coming straight at you before it turns.
Oh
But it
yes.
is a lot of good. There's a lot of as long as you have a good view, you're pretty safe everywhere. The problem is getting a good view anywhere on that path. As far as my favorite parade, I love yes, Paint the Night and the Main Street Electrical Parade, which is like the first version of Paint the Night. I do think that
Sure. Yeah.
a day parade. What's a good day parade? I don't even know.
Well, I was never a fan of Sensational. It was
I don't
okay
know.
for me. The Christmas Fantasy Parade's a great day parade.
I mean, I've always this is probably terrible to say. I feel like they just kind of blend together, and I mean that in a good way. I enjoy the parade. So when there's a daytime parade going around the 4 o'clock hour or whatever, and we're seeing it, um, I watch it and I enjoy it. And I couldn't 9 out of 10 times, like, unless we're on the show or whatever, I wouldn't even know what the parade was called. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's a great parade. That's just how I am with parades. They're great. Of course, doing the show, you do so much homework. You're aware of times and this and
Yeah.
that. But it's been 3 years since we've seen the darn parade. It feels like.
Oh,
Uh,
Connor,
Da-
it's so true. Day parades.
David, if you Ryan Wilmoth asks us if you could have any attraction in your backyard, what would it be?
Well, one thing that I've always wanted since I was a kid and to this day as an adult, and it's going to happen before I die, is that I want a treehouse in my backyard. I've always wanted a treehouse. So I know it's not the sexiest attraction at Disneyland, but I would put Tarzan's treehouse in my backyard, or even Chippendale's treehouse for that matter. Maybe spruce it up a little bit. But I'll be damned if I don't have a treehouse in my backyard before I'm dead. So
That's hilarious.
that's my answer.
I also, well, not also. I totally cheated on this because if I have to pick an attraction for my backyard, I'm picking the Mark Twain because with that comes the rivers of America.
Right.
With that comes the canoes and the
Damn.
raft, and with that comes an island.
Damn, Ron.
I'm just saying. But if I had to be more conventional, I would probably what's like the rewrite ability. I guess I would go Big Thunder.
Okay.
I guess, but I definitely like the Mark Twain idea.
No, go for it.
Um, um, Last one, David. Louis Trossel asks us, "What do you listen to on the drive to Disneyland?"
Oh God. This is silence. I don't listen to anything. Um, I suppose I should, but it used to be sports radio, but I'm not even into sports these days anymore. I'm so busy. So I don't listen to music. I don't listen to anything. I drive in silence. I know that sucks, but
Dr. Clapper Weekend Warrior.
Oh my God, I do not like Dr. Clapper.
I love Dr. Well, let me start by saying the reason I listen to Dr. Clapper Weekend Warrior is to your first point. I only listen to sports in
Right, and that's
710
what's
in the
playing on
car.
Saturday morning
At,
at
se-
8 a.m.
at my Saturday 7, not even 8 a.m. I'm parked. I leave at 6:50 and I'm pulling into my special outside lane. I know exactly how to get in there
Yeah.
at Mickey and Friends. Right at 7:30, I'm in with no cars in front of me. Right when they open the turnstiles, I time it perfectly. Park in the usually on the roof because we're the first ones there, or
Yeah.
amongst the first ones there. Park on the roof. This is why I like Mickey and Friends. I drive straight in. I get out of my car and I walk straight when things are open. I walk straight through downtown Disney, straight into the park. Like I never have to stop. I never have to slow down. And I love walking. I prefer the walk.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That's hilarious that you brought him up. For those who don't know, Dr. Clapper doesn't do sports. He's a sports
he's an
doctor.
orthopedic surgeon,
He's an orthopedic surgeon, so he talks about people's knees for 2 hours. And
but
I
he's
mean, he has
art.
other interests. He's kind of a bohemian.
Yeah.
He's art, he's an interesting guy. But I just can't. I'd rather listen to regular sports radio. So
Yeah, I'm not gonna
so
try.
funny.
I don't know how to use my digital thing in my car, so this remains there. Okay, David. Top five Disneyland or five things Disneyland. I am falling
You're
apart.
rushing me today,
Five things Disneyland. What's even worse? Should I wing it or tell the truth that I do not have my five things Disneyland because I'm looking on the thing here and it was last week's top five things at either park we've never done or experienced.
Oh my
But
gosh, really? So
but but let me fool you. What
okay.
are your top
Well, no,
five
then you go
tricks?
first then, so that you don't have to say, "Oh, that was going to be one of my picks." You go first.
No, I'm gonna need yours. Well,
Oh, okay.
then your five is gonna be my four. What are your top five tricks to navigate busy Disneyland days at Disneyland?
Well,
I will.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. No.
Oh, I was gonna give you my fifth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Go for it.
Yeah, it's not really a thing, but it's the path of least resistance. Don't fight the flow. Don't fight the traffic. Um, go where the people aren't. Just
Go where the
just
people aren't. Yeah.
just go where the flow is. Check your app. Everybody, of course, is on their app. But don't be caught up in an order or a chronological plan per se. I
Yeah.
know you got to eat, but when you see something and it's only a 10-minute wait, or whatever the case may be, go do that thing. Do that thing because things will evolve fluidly after that. So just kind of path of least resistance.
To that end, everything at Disneyland is worth doing. So it's not like you're missing out on anything. If a thing is 10 minutes, still do it. It's Disneyland. It's the thing. It's worth doing. And I would say my number five kind of is similar to yours, except I'm getting specific. I'm going to say go ahead and just skip Indian Space Mountain, unless you do those things very, very first. They chew up a whole bunch of your time. So and they create anxiety and stress, trying to beat the crowd or whatever. So in your mind, just skip those attractions like that. Skip Indian, skip Space, and work on some other stuff. That's my number five.
That's a good one. I actually, as far as attractions are concerned, keep your eye on knowing which ones tell the truth and which ones don't tell the truth. And I believe Big Thunder Mountain, if it's and Pirates of the Caribbean, and even Haunted Mansion, those go so. I have noticed, especially in the last several months, but all time historically, the line the posted wait time for those attractions is much longer than they really are, and
Mm,
they go at a very good clip. Big Thunder, especially if that thing says 20 minutes, you're on in 10.
yeah.
But know how to navigate Big Thunder, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates to fill your day and maximize your day.
So that's your four then?
Yep.
Okay, so my four is again, it's kind of a similar to that. This is the time to focus on live entertainment if you can catch shows as opposed to attractions. Things like the Dapper Dans or the Pearly Band or stuff like that. Things that you can kind of catch casually, as you make your way through the park. Enjoy those aspects of Disneyland. Try to anyway, because they're the kind of things that you often would just skip on your way to some other busy thing that you're trying to do. So that a busy day is a good time to cut back on the major things and do the smaller things like shows.
My number three is single rider. Take advantage of the single riders.
Yeah.
Um, Even if you're in your group, I know we've talked about this before, but just do it. Take advantage
Yeah.
of it of the single rider. It's super fun. It if you've never done it, it probably sounds and feels foreign, but honestly, it's I have nothing but great experiences with single rider, and not only that, it really truly shaves a significant amount of
So much
line
time.
standing.
Yeah. I don't have a negative thing to say about single rider.
Either do I. Either do I.
Okay, my number three is to use mobile order. Um, nothing can ruin the speed and what do you call it? The velocity. The nothing can slow your day down more than getting in a standby line for lunch or dinner. Use mobile order, please. I know it sucks. I hate being on my phone, but I also want my 45 minutes back.
Right.
I don't like wasting 45 minutes if I don't have to, especially on a busy day. Use mobile order, use it effectively. Try to plan your meals if you can, because it'll just save you so much time.
Yeah, that's funny because the maximizing of the time when it isn't there, when it's crowded, and that was my number two is mobile order. The combination of single rider and mobile order, and these are things that I've long practiced. I just do them, and we always talk about dominating Disneyland Champ and I. On the Dominate Disneyland Days, we have our everything in stride
Yeah.
scheduled into that of single rider and mobile order, and it's just smart park domination plan if efficiency and speed is your goal.
By the way, listen to every single thing that Ron says on this topic, because he's been beating busy days at Disneyland longer than any of us have. He knows what he's doing when it comes to this. My number two is take advantage of the first 2 hours and the last hour, depending on when you're
Smart.
when you're visiting the park. If your goal is to hit rides, then you should be thinking laser focus first 2 hours of the day, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Going Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland should be the first place you go. If you have designs on Space Mountain, that's when you do it. And then you could crush all of Tomorrowland in the first 30, 40 minutes. And then maybe you still have time for Indy. Don't show up at the park, please, at noon. I guess is what I'm saying. Please don't do that, because that's just like the worst time to get to the park. Get there at 8 a.m. and knock out a bunch of rides. And then if you're staying late, you can save a bunch of your favorite rides for the last hour, because obviously everybody's going home, and you can knock out a bunch of rides that way.
I second everything he just said because that's what I've been doing for
Yep.
years.
I learned from the
That
best.
And not only that, but there's something to be said if you haven't done it. The energy is always super high as soon as the park's open. They just did
Yeah.
rope drop. I'm not even joking. I'm addicted to doing Space Mountain immediately. So within 10 minutes of the park's open, I'm already been on Space Mountain. And when I get off to walk up the stairs, my legs are jello. They're like rubbery because your body just went through that shock to the
Yeah,
system
yeah.
at 8, 10 a.m. And I love it. And we do wipe out Tomorrowland quickly. My number one, and it's all part of the same thing. And you kind of said it earlier. I often do this when the parks are so slammed. I just did this a few weeks ago. When the parks are so slammed, again, it's the benefit of going often. I get that, but I do the things that I don't often do, like like David alluded to, entertainment. Viewing the entertainment, viewing the Dapper Dans, taking the Main Street vehicles. Maybe you do these things commonly, but the point is the things that on a regular slow day I may not do. The busy days I take
Right.
advantage of doing those things, and then it feels like an amazing great day because you're not thinking about, oh, I didn't get on whatever the ride was, because you're doing other things, which is equally and maybe a slightly differently entertainment value and enjoyable. And I just absolutely maximize those things that I do so rarely on those slammed days.
Yep. Everything at Disneyland is worth doing. Everything. So when you can't do some of those other things, it's the time to do the things that you would normally skip on a less busy day. If it's not busy, yeah, I'm going right for Big Thunder or Space Mountain. If it's not busy, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
When you can't do that, then do the things that you would otherwise skip. My number one is to lower your expectations.
Ooh.
Get in the mindset. Get in the mindset that things are not going to go the way that you think or want them to go. Change how you feel about the park. Don't allow yourself to get depressed or anxiety about the lines are long. Forget all of that. Change your expectations and just try to be in the moment and experience Disneyland the way it should be, and that's with an open mind and just casually enjoy the park. Stop worrying about the waits.
That's a very good point, a very good tip. Relax.
Yeah.
Expectations is what leads to disappointment in life
right.
in general. Awesome show, David. Anything you want to add?
Disneyland Forward coming to a park near you in 30 years.
In 30 years, think about that. Oh my goodness. Then again, so will Tomorrowland. I mean,
where's my Tomorrowland Forward?
Yeah, exactly. They're just pretending it doesn't exist and never happened. That's a wrap, David. Brings us to the end of today's show.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us for a up and down conversation about forever, about yesterday, about tomorrow. We got time to work that conversation out. We got plenty of time for that. Thanks for making us a part of your day, and please rate, review, comment. That's that. So I guess join us next week. Next week we're gonna talk about something, David. I don't know what it's gonna be, but until then,
FreshBaked.
It froze. FreshBaked.
Right.
FreshBaked. What's your face do? FreshBaked. FreshBaked. Why does my face do that when I do it?
I don't. What does your face do?
I feel like a Muppet when I do it. FreshBaked.
No, you got to feel like. Okay. Do you remember? Did you listen to K-Rock back in the day?
Of course.
And do you remember the Best Buy? When they were talking about Best Buy, Kevin and Bean in the morning, they go Best Buy.
Right. Oh my God.
Think
funny.
that, then say FreshBaked.
Uh.
Best Buy.
FreshBaked.
There you go.